So,
and so that's what you're hearing a lot of feelings because of that as well. So that when we see this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful actor playing the Emperor of China, and he's Caucasian, I start as an audience member. Actually, this is what happens to me. So I come here, I'm trying to be just like, let me just take it in. So my brain starts to try to figure out, do all these people want to be Chinese, and that's why they're dressed like that? I don't know. Or am I supposed to get the message that that the white man is in power even in the land of my ancestors? Am I supposed to think if this happened in where my ancestors came from back in the 1800s, I actually wouldn't exist because there were no Chinese people that married each other. And so I just wanted to point that out, that's what's hitting me and a lot of our colleagues that we've heard from.
I'd also just like to mention, in terms of, I understand that it's not a finished piece, and I do appreciate the idea that it is a workshop and we are developing, through this conversation. But the fact of the matter is that it's in this very public forum. And the thing is, I think back to when I was a kid, my mother used to always tell us that we always needed to be on our best behavior. We were like the one Chinese or Asian American family in our neighborhood. And she impressed upon us that we always had to be on our best behavior because we would be the first Chinese or Asian American person that a lot of people would ever meet. And in that way that we would always be an ambassador for our people. I was 5.
But you were a good Chinese woman.
Asian mothers, that's what I'm right about. But, and so that's something that I think back to my childhood and just how much exhausting educating I would have to do or living down certain stereotypes of the Kwai Chang Caine, of the thing, and I see this and I go, this is potentially the first introduction to any kind of Asian culture or Asian American culture that someone out there might experience, and therefore that will formulate their judgments or their impressions of what that is and what that means, and that's something that just hits me.
Well, I also just wanted to put in the room that modern race politics plays into this discussion. And some of you have alluded to it, and I just wondered if anybody wanted to speak more to it. And if that wasn't what you were going to say, Cindy, go ahead and say what you were going to say. But I wanted to put that in the room.
I can loop in. We know it's not a finished product, and it's why we're here, to influence. We don't want to see this happen anymore. If it was a finished product, we'd be outside with pickets. And we will. We don't have any choice if we will. We already showed up here, Around multicultural casting, another thing I wanted to say was, it's very difficult when we read in the paper the explanations that have been given that we wanted to do a rainbow cast, we wanted to do multicultural casting, which sounds really good and well-meaning and altruistic, but it's skipping over the reality of today's race politics. It's skipping over the reality that 1.5% of Broadway roles in the last 5 years went to Asian Americans. It's skipping all of that. And multicultural casting was created to create opportunities for people in underrepresented groups. And what I see here is that it created opportunities for 5 white men. So that's not what it is. It's just not what it is.
Well, I've always tried to make the casting process a very sort of private thing so that actors will feel really comfortable and protected when they audition. So, and because we're all very proud of the cast that we have and very respectful of the actors who are in the show. It's hard to talk specifically about the casting process on this show with great detail, but I can explain maybe the casting process in a way that might make people understand some of the things that happen when you're casting the Nightingale, and also many other things that we work on. And there's a lot of there's a lot of discussion, and sometimes we make offers to actors who didn't audition, and sometimes those offers are accepted, and sometimes they're not. And sometimes there are actors whom we would love to work with who are not available. And so there's a tremendous amount of that, and in this particular case there was a lot of that. And so there are things that happen that would have changed our casting had they happened. I'll just say it that way. And so, as far as no one, I don't know how to say this, except that no one set out to cast any specific role in any specific race. And so, except, we made an offer to one actor who accepted the role immediately, and so then that role was cast by a person of that color. And then we cast other parts that were also cast by people of a different race. And so we thought we were on our way toward this goal of a multicultural, multiracial company. And we weren't always able to achieve it, but we didn't set out to cast a Caucasian emperor. It wasn't as if we thought that was going to be, that was not ever part of our vision or our plan. And if we were doing this show on Broadway, our casting process would have been more extensive and elaborate, because we would have had a longer audition process. We would have had so there are things that would have that could have changed it but we ended up with a gorgeous company that we have right now.
Did a good job.
I hear all that, but I still wonder if this was set in Africa and it was an African king. Would you have dared to do that? To cast a Caucasian male to play an African king?
No. Never.
Or just cast 2 African Americans in the whole play.
I think that, to your point, the creative team from the start was really intent in this being a world that had much more to do with the Hans Christian Andersen mythical fable-like space. And again, in the design process and in the casting process, that in making it China in a specific place and a specific time. So I think that, so Tara was going under our, she had our marching orders, and our marching orders were, we're trying to make this a multicultural space that it is where fable and myth can occur. So we were really trying to go for that.
But you still didn't answer my question.
Which is?
If it had been an African king, would you have considered casting a white male in the role?
I think that by saying what our vision was for the play, we're answering that question.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Well, I'm not sure it's productive to say what would you do if.
Okay.
But
I'm
I think
sorry.
I think what I want to say is I think that an important learning point here could be that people could take with them is in the journey toward a mythical land. If the story is based on a particular culture, then it is important to ask resources who have expertise in that culture, help us explore how are we going to get there artistically without causing great pain to that community.